all of that was silly, ridiculous, a waste of time. They didn't want that's why they were so successful. That's why they got away.
Made a living in very dangerous.
There's an integrated home society.
Dianne Andrews in black and white.
Welcome to Dianne Andrews in Black and White, and I'm your host, Dianne Andrews. Thank you for joining us in our 3 million homes in Louisiana and Mississippi. We're in 50 parishes here in Louisiana. We are in Baton Rouge, Louisiana now in my studio. We're in 4 counties in Mississippi. I just left Washington, D.C., doing some shows at the Whistleblowers Conference that I do every year, and we come on in D.C. when I do those shows. And I also do shows in Houston, and when I do shows over there like Harvey and the Me Too movement, Phyllis Stickney, Barbara Ali, Muhammad Ali's supposedly polygamous wife, but we did all of those in Houston. So at times we're in like 5 million people's homes, so it's wonderful for you to invite Dianne Andrews in Black and White into your home, and I appreciate that. You're like friends and family. I get stopped quite often around Baton Rouge, New Orleans, of people who have seen the show and appreciate the show. But please follow us on our www.youtube.com/Dianne Andrews show. Join our subscription to YouTube and then our social media. You'll see all those handles up here behind me on the screen. So thank you very much. And we keep on trying to bring you things that are hot topics, I call them, or hot issues, because I'm not a hot topics like a Wendy Williams. I'm more of a hot issues kind of person. And we just did vaping, and we're probably going to do some more about the vaping industry. But today, this show brings about a lot of spirit, I would like to say, and a lot of emotions on different sides from different people. When I was in Houston, the Isaiah Carey Factor did a show, and he just had 2 men on his show talking about the judge, Tammy Kemp, that came down from the bench in Dallas, Texas, to hug a lady she had just convicted of murder. She had given her 10 years, but she did say the lady asked her for a hug. The brother of the murdered party came down from the witness stand and gave her a hug and also told her he forgave her. Now, some people can take that and some can't. For me, that was a spiritual thing, and the right thing is the Bible tells us to do. But we're going to bring in a judge to talk to, a former judge, to talk to you about that, and a religious person, a pastor also. So come on back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White, and let's see what their opinions are on this, and see if they match yours, because it can get very heated on this topic. Come on back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White. Welcome back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White. As you see, I have 2 guests sitting next to me now. I have former judge and recent Bessie Board winner from District 8. A very good friend of mine, Attorney Preston Castille. This is probably your 5th time on here, Preston.
It may be. Thanks for having me, Dianne.
You're welcome. Glad you won, so we can talk about a little bit before we get into a lot of things about your vision, because this is your passion, I know.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. So, no, I'm excited about having been elected Saturday night on the primary. So taking the first round was great, and I look forward to serving the students of the state of Louisiana and all the families.
And how long were you the Southern University Federation Alumni president? How long were you there?
I was the national president for 4 years. So it was a great opportunity to serve the Jaguar Nation. It was a great job, one of the best jobs in the country.
Yeah, and now you're ready to serve local school district.
Absolutely.
Here.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Absolutely.
And to my left, I have pastor of United Fellowship Church, Felita Smith. Thanks for being with you.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
Your husband is the other pastor. Do you all co-pastor the church?
We do. He's the bishop and I'm the co-pastor.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. And you majored in theology, I think, up at Southern University. Did you tell me?
I majored in social work. I have a bachelor degree in social work, but I have a degree also in theology.
Did you always know you wanted to be a minister? Or social work, of course, is about helping people.
Yeah.
So you always knew you wanted to help, or did you always know you wanted to be a pastor?
I always knew I wanted to help.
Uh-huh.
Pastoring came later down the line.
Was that after the marriage?
Actually, that was brought us together, was the fact that we both was realizing we had a calling on our lives. And God put us together.
Did y'all meet at church? At a church?
How you know that?
I'm just guessing. I got a yes. Y'all know Dianne Andrews has a yes.
Yes, that's where we met. We met at church.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So the question here today about Botham Jean is, was that proselytizing by the judge, Tammy Kemp, or was that an Aunt Jemima act? I've heard people say in Texas. They didn't use that words, but that's what it meant. In one show I watched there, it said that black people always forgive white people first. This is on Isaiah Carey's show over there in Houston. He's a Louisiana boy. And I was watching, he had two black men talking about it. They were upset of how she came down from the bench and did this. And some people say it's just an act of compassion, like I believe the brother did, Brent, when he forgave her and told her, I forgive you. That is what the Bible says to do, although it's a very hard thing to do. I commend him for that, but I want to know about the judge. What do you think? Have you ever seen that before in your history as an attorney, which is how many years, Preston?
25.
Have you ever seen anyone come down from the bench before?
I've seen judges come down. The idea of giving
the Bible in their hand.
Yeah, well, giving the defendant a hug might be a little unusual, but it certainly was an unusual circumstance. And I've had a chance to go back and look at the footage, and I don't think she initially had the Bible in her hand.
Okay.
I think that Amber Guyger, knowing that she was going to jail for 10 years, at that point in time, mentioned she didn't have a Bible. And I think the judge gave her her Bible and said, you can have mine. I have several others at home.
But it was back there. It was her bench Bible.
It was her bench Bible.
It was bench Bible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
And she asked her twice, I understand, for a hug. Is that what you understand,
Right.
Pastor? That she said, could you please give me a hug?
Yes, because the camera was, when you watch it on TV, you only see the back of her head, Amber's head.
Right.
But she spoke twice and asked the judge for a hug. And I believe any human being would be compassionate enough to give a person that's getting ready to go to jail for another 10 years a hug.
Hopefully out in 5 with good behavior.
Hopefully, yes. But I believe it was a good thing, not a bad thing to do.
But do you believe, Preston, that because a lot of people thought the sentence should be a lot longer than 10 years for murder, and they tried to tie the two together. Okay, she gave her a short sentence, she'll be out in 5, she killed this white woman who killed this black guy who thinks this is her apartment that she's in. It does sound convoluted when I say it that way.
Yeah, sure. No, there's no doubt that it was a very explosive case, very unfortunate situation, and it pitted a lot of issues, social issues that we deal with in this country. Right. And I think a lot of emotion is going on across it. There's no doubt about that. I think Amber Guyger, looking back, probably regrets what she did. On the other hand, she did it.
Right.
She killed an innocent man, and I think that's caused a lot of people to be very angry in this country, and I get that. I totally get it. Now, just to be real clear.
And it would be a black-white situation. We can make it more heated under some communities.
Yeah,
in our community.
We certainly can. But the jury, let's be real clear about what happened with Judge Kemp. The judge does not convict a defendant. The jury did that. Right. The jury convicted this defendant as a jury would do in any other case. The jury actually set the sentence. So the jury actually made the
time. Do they? She sets the time, right? The judge.
In terms of the time, the jury, they were polled and they were asked about in terms of how much time. They thought it should have been a whole lot longer. So to be real clear, the judge really serves as a referee in a trial like this.
They thought it should be longer, you said.
Oh, the public certainly thought it should be longer. And there's a big case to be made for it to be longer. But in looking at the interviews of some of the jurors, they came back and said, the public is looking at it from one perspective, but we were right there every day and watching and making a determination whether this lady appeared to be remorseful. I don't know whether she was. I don't know whether she wasn't. I'm telling you what the juror said. And the juror said, yeah, I know that there's an argument for it being a much longer period of time, and maybe it should have been. But in their eyes, they said, look, she appeared to be remorseful. It was an unfortunate situation. They gave her 10 years. We can go back and forth for the next 50 years on whether it should have been longer. But in terms of the role of the judge and the jury, just wanting to clarify that the jury made these decisions. Now, what happened after
the judge really do? Now, wait, I'm questioning a bigger issue. What do you all do
the
as
judge has got
judges?
to make a determination in terms of evidence and what comes in and what does not go in.
Oh, yeah.
Making sure
During
the
the
judge
trial, yeah.
during the trial.
During the trial.
And that's an important thing. Who gets to testify,
yeah.
who doesn't get to testify, whether a
I
witness is
object
supposed
and she has to say
that's
what-
right.
yes.
The judge is the gatekeeper of evidence and what's supposed to come in. And so the judge serves an incredibly important role. There's no doubt about that. But there are
And she's
two
a
ways.
state district
She's
court
a state
judge.
district court
Right.
judge. But what's important is the jury is the trier of fact. The trier of fact. And so in a criminal case or in a civil case, the jury is going to make a determination of guilt or not guilty. And the jury made a decision. And they found her to be guilty.
Now, do you know the composition of that jury? White to black, male to female?
My understanding was that it was a very diverse jury. So it wasn't one that was heavily black or heavily white. And then watching some of the folks who were interviewed, there was an African-American lady and a white gentleman, and they were both interviewed. And they gave their perspective. And you've got to think about it. Sometimes from the viewing public's perspective, we see a snapshot in time. We may have seen 10 minutes, or you may have been like me. I watched 30 minutes this morning preparing for the show, but I didn't sit there every day to know what was in their mind. Likewise, I didn't sit there and like the judge and see what was going on. And you can make a determination, I think most people can, by looking someone in the eye, by watching their facial expressions, watching their emotions. And that's how we as human beings judge people. We do that every day, and that jury made a decision. And as it relates to the act of the judge, she likewise had to make a judgment call at the conclusion of the trial.
Now, she is being sued by a foundation. Freedom of Religious Rights, I think they don't really believe in religion. She was being sued. The judge, Tammy Kemp. Do you believe that had anything with her saying, you know, I felt that this woman needed a purpose? She seemed to be in the lowest point of her life. Who wouldn't be? Now, I have lived in condo buildings before, and we are high rises. So I can understand. I have pushed my elevator. You know, you're in a crowded elevator, somebody pushes the floor before you or after, you may get off on the wrong floor.
Yes.
I have done that myself, I think, once or twice. But once, and the hallways look very similar in condo buildings. And if you're on the phone or thinking about something, she is a policewoman with a gun. But she walks in, the first thing I said, well, why did her key work? But I understand his door was open.
Right.
So that should have made her think somebody's trying to rob me, right? So she was probably afraid walking in, even though you're a policeman with a gun, a policewoman with a gun. So have you ever been in that situation? I've done Black, White, Blue Lives Matter. I've had all chiefs on and sheriff and wardens of jail, and all of them, I asked them, why do we shoot people to kill? When I did Alton Sterling and these other cases that I think Alton Sterling did finally get some justice for what has happened to the policeman. But I do wonder if she said she made all these remarks, you know, who's in, you know, whatever you're supposed to say. But do you think she just walked in maybe and shot? Because when she got in, she should have realized this is not my house. Now, I realized once I think I would have realized once I got in.
The thing that I looked at is the first thing that they brought out at his door was a red rug.
Yeah,
Nobody else's
red
door.
rug.
To me, that was a giveaway.
That was inside when you walked in the door, but wasn't it a dark room with just television
Yeah,
on?
they said the lights wasn't on.
Yeah.
But the fact to me is the fact, if you are a trained officer, at all times you're doing your duty.
Right.
Whether you're off duty or on duty, your instincts ought to kick in.
Right.
And if you walk into your door, whether you were on the wrong floor or not, to me, a red rug as you walk to the door.
Any rug. Let's say it was kind of dark, you couldn't see, but I know a crook wouldn't have bought a rug and him and sit it at my door.
And then I understand the fact that his door was cracked open.
Right.
So that would make her think, okay,
burglars in
somebody's
here.
in my
But don't
home.
at that time we don't have a police person here, but shouldn't you call for backup even if it is your house?
The jury ultimately came to the conclusion that everything that we're saying, and I think others have said, is that what she did at the end of the day is that she killed an innocent man, and that should have happened for all of those reasons.
Did she know him?
No, I
first
don't
I heard
think she
she
did.
did, but then I heard she didn't know him.
I don't
Has
think she
any
did.
investigation shown that she knew him before at any given time?
I've not seen anything. That there could be something else.
Yeah, people were trying to put a link together that, that they may have dated before. Did you hear that?
I heard that at the beginning, yeah.
And I don't think there's evidence. That would have definitely come out in this trial. Yeah.
And I think that the bigger issue came down to, should she have gotten 10 years versus something longer?
Right.
Because
So
after
let's
the
hold
jury
that
decision,
thought, and then we're going to be right back with
Sure.
Dianne Andrews in Black and White. Come on and help us with this debate. You can be thinking what you say out there on television, our friends and family out there in our television land. Come on back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White.
How do you see the world?
At Shriners Hospitals for Children, we know that changing how you see things can turn them into
everyday miracles,
like riding my bike,
breaking boards, hugging my mom.
Every day for over 90 years, Shriners Hospitals for Children has been sending love to the rescue, regardless of a family's ability to pay.
If you know a child we can help, call or go online now.
Welcome back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White. Now, what was your point, Attorney Castille?
Well, it's just the time of the sentence. I think the big debate was 10 years long enough, or should it have been 28 years? Or the length of the age of the decedent, Mr. John.
It wasn't premeditated murder, though. What right? It was what?
Yeah, you could argue that a lot of things, that it certainly wasn't premeditated.
Right.
She didn't have the mens rea where she's thinking about this and planning it out,
Right.
and she is intentional about the fact that
Which
she
gets
wants to
more
kill.
time, doesn't
And
it?
that
Premeditated
absolutely.
usually does, right?
No doubt about
Yeah,
it. And that
okay.
wasn't the case here, but it's still a homicide nonetheless. And the question, I think, in the minds of the public and a lot of folks, and it's family, and they debated and they struggled with it,
Yeah.
was whether that was a long enough sentence. But ultimately, there was a decision made on the 10 years. And, until you're in that jury box, and
Right.
you have to make that decision, and they have to make the call. And I know it's controversial, and people have lots of opinions, but those 12 people will have to ultimately make that call. And they chose 10 years.
But they did convict her. And that, as a policewoman, we always hear these stories. It's very hard to convict police people, right? But I think hers was, you had to know she was there, and it was no doubt that she murdered this man by whatever circumstances. She killed this man.
Extraordinarily unfortunate circumstances.
Yeah, and back to the red rug. Yeah, the rug, as we were talking about Pastor Smith, that seems to, she had to almost trip over the rug getting into the apartment.
Because
I know your point, you're a judge, and it's the ruling, but we're debating here.
Because even when they, during the trial, they measured how far the way you put the key in is from the floor. And they had her to stand by the area with a tape measure to measure how far is the floor.
They had her actually do that, or had somebody do that.
Yes,
Oh,
the lawyer did it. So you can't help, if you put your key in, somewhere you got to recognize the color. If not just say a rug, but if you, bright red.
Right.
If you're putting your key in the door to open it, your eyes, if it ain't nothing but a glance, should have recognized a rug there. And if you got ready to put your key in and the door was slightly open, I believe her instincts might have kicked in that. But even in thinking it's still your apartment,
Right.
how can you?
It had to be something in there in a situation of furniture that made. I think what happened, as police that I've interviewed have said, you're taught to shoot to kill if you think your life is in danger. And that is what they are taught in the police academy.
Yes.
So I think she just went there with shoot to kill.
Well, no doubt about
Her
it.
instincts
Her
of
instinct
police
kicked
being a
in.
policeman
Yes.
kicked
Somebody's
in.
in my place. She didn't think about a rug. She didn't think about the color of the ceiling or the
Yeah.
walls or the TV being on. And he stood up and she shot to kill.
And then also
Wasn't
she
he
said,
watching TV? Didn't he?
yes,
Watching
yes,
television?
but she also said in the trial that she had been looking over while she was at work, the things that had been going on in the area, and there had been break-ins in the area. And so after knowing this, I guess this was still in her mind
Right.
of the different burglaries that have taken place in her vicinity. But So when she gets home, and even though she had been working long hours, and she was on the phone with her boyfriend.
She was on the phone walking in.
And then when you also get the
Like she would've
opportunity.
said, hey, why don't you come here? Or I think you should have called for backup. Not that I'm a policeman. I just think I thought that was the common mode. If you come into a situation like that, or even if it's not your place, don't you call backup first thing instead of talking to your boyfriend?
Yeah. And the fact too that
So he was on the phone with her, and he could testify that she said those things, that she said like, get out, whatever she was supposed to say. What was she supposed to say? I understand there were some comments that she was purportedly to have made to him to make him stand down.
Yeah, I think there is plenty of evidence that she should have made a determination other than just shooting to kill immediately.
And that's why it's murder.
There's so much that was going on.
yes, and also she was carrying her equipment in one hand, a vest and a bag. She was carrying this when she was going to the apartment. So even her putting it down and getting her gun, somewhere your eyesight still ought to be able to see.
She put it down in his apartment.
As she opened the door, she sit it down at the door to be able to keep the door open. So putting it down somewhere, you should still be able to see your surroundings, even though the apartment was dark. But even
This all happened within 5
yeah, she said it was quick. It was quick.
5 seconds.
I'm not doubting that she was acting so quick that she really didn't allow all her instincts to kick in to know what to do. But somewhere I just felt like it was an innocent man that was killed when more training from
How
her.
long has she been a police officer? Do we know?
I don't know how long she was.
She's a very young lady.
Yeah,
She's 31. I think she was 30 or 31, yeah.
And what this all gets to is that people make decisions based on their experiences. So if they are watching criminal activity all the time, they become very sensitive, and maybe sometimes overly sensitive to certain profiles of people. And I think at the end of the day, I think with the decision that Judge Kemp, and where we started this conversation, when she made the decision to hug back Amber at the end, it really suggested that as a human being, what do I do in this moment? You've got lots of people making decisions sort of in the heat of the moment.
I saw her interviewed, Tammy Kemp, and she said, I see a young woman with a lot of life out there.
Yes.
And right now is the lowest point in her life, and I wanted to give her a purpose. And that's why she gave her the Bible. I think it was chapter John 3:16.
Yeah, 3:16
is what she wanted her to read. And you can tell us better. What is that exactly?
God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. That's what she gave her to read. Because she felt like she didn't have purpose. And even being a Christian, every believer believed that every person has a purpose. I don't care if you're down.
Purpose during her life was written by ministers.
So for her, she felt like her life was over. She had no purpose. But being a judge, her job was over as far as sentencing her and all that. But then the part of her humanity, her compassion towards someone kicked in.
She said she could not believe the criticism that she has gotten from the act of
love make you go forth the way she did. She has the love of God on the inside of her. So of course she's going to reach out to this woman because this woman said, can I get a hug? Who's going to deny that?
I don't know.
Because nobody know what they're going to do until that moment.
She may not have been a religious person, but you don't usually have a Bible in the cell with you, I would think. They don't keep those in there, do they?
That's right.
They don't keep
She
a
actually
Bible.
said that.
Right. But they're allowed to bring it into the cell with you if you have it, huh? You can book, you can bring it.
Absolutely. And so, I agree with the pastor that, at that moment in time, you're a human being before you're a judge, and the trial was over at that moment in time. There's a reality that there is supposed to be this separation between church and state. So I get the concern by some groups. On the other hand, when you're there at that moment in time, and the judge is having to make a judgment call of, do I help a person who's going to jail? There's no doubt about it. She's going to jail. And if she lives, she will get out of jail and have to enter into society.
She's going to prison, right?
She's going to prison.
Yeah,
she is
prison,
going to prison. But if she lives at 31 and she gets out 5-10 years, whatever, she's going to come back into the world and society. And so I think at that moment in time where she's entering, you're also thinking about what kind of person is going to come out on the back end. The fact that the judge is giving some serious consideration to that as an experienced experienced judge and jurors, I think that's an important thing to take into consideration. And I will tell you, I applaud her for being a human.
Being a police person, going into prison, don't they usually do they keep them in a separate area, or they're in the same area as the rest of the convicts?
You know, in certain circumstances that they may be separated, but she may likely be among the general population. But at the end of the day, she won't be a police officer while she's there. She won't be one when she gets out, but she will be a human being that will have some sort of impact.
But Preston, my point is, a lot of people in there believe that she may have done the wrong thing. In there, but that black-white, I don't know if they have the gangs in prison with women prisons, but I'm sure there's still some tending to feel like that. So I don't know time will tell whether they have to put her in another.
Prison is not a picnic. That's a tough environment, and that's why it's called prison.
Yes. Well, thank you two for being with us today, and I think it turned out to be a very helpful, not debate, just conversation, because whether she was proselytizing on Aunt Jemima, just acts of compassion. It's up to you to make that decision out there, but I think the majority of us here believe at the end of the day it was an act of compassion. So come on back to Dianne Andrews while we take a short break. For coming back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White. As you know, I've been out of my studio for a while and been back in it 3 or 4 months, and I wanted to do my close that I used to do pretty much on every show, because it's really about lighting and illuminating purpose in your life and in other people's lives. But before we get into that, I am holding a Bible like Tammy Kemp gave to Amber Guyger. And we looked at it in the break, and we found out that she is going to be held in protective custody in the prison in Texas because she is a former police person. I thought that they would do something different for her, because it's pretty dangerous when you go straight into prison as an officer. When I was a little girl growing up in Louisiana, little town, Marouge, Louisiana, the Red Sea, up in northern Louisiana near Arkansas, I saw a show that used to come on every Sunday. And it said if everyone lived just one little candle, what a bright world this would be. Could you imagine? Just in America, we have 330 million people, and let's say 100 million lit just one little candle. And what that was about illuminating help for people, illuminating your light and shining your light, and going out and helping other people shine their lights. Now, that doesn't mean you have money to give, but everybody's got something to give. Whether it's time, whether it's money, whether you can have a charity, whatever you can do, let's all try to make this place that we're on a better place for us today and for the future. Thank you from Dianne Andrews in Black and White. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.